A lot of things irk me when reading a novel, but my only problem with this one is why did I not read this sooner? I have been familiar of Phantom of the Opera for quite some time during my quest of reading more Gothic horror, and yet I feel betrayed by whatever unnameable reason as to why I never picked up this novel at an earlier date. After reading the novel, I've spiraled into an ecstatic fever dream. I've watched the 25th anniversary Royal Albert Hall musical production, and only a mere hour after that, I watched the 2004 film adaptation, and now it has taken space, occupying my every waking moment. We follow along the story as the narrator investigates the strange occurrences within the Paris Opera House. Such are the actions of a mysterious being known as the Phantom of the Opera. But as the story progresses, we later found out that such events are of natural cause. A man named Eric and not an incorporeal being. However, it becomes clear that Eric is no ordinary human either. The fantastical elements of the novel draw upon his very peculiarities. Eric's identity is built upon compensation for his perceived monstrosity. He utilized his talents as a gifted musician, singer, and architect to control his hold of the opera. Though events that occurred in the novel are explained in rational fashion, it does not completely renounce the supernatural. It embraces both elements as we are dealing with a character that is simultaneously embodied as inhuman and yet represents real human flaws, one that a reader would probably sympathize with. This paradoxical characterization is central to the Phantom's existence. Although many events at the opera are ultimately explained in terms of logic and rationality, the puzzle of Eric's existence separates this tale from ordinary mystery novels, creating a dimensional story. Eric's past as an assassin in Persia puts the crimes he had committed in proper context, portraying Eric as someone who has to work with and is therefore desensitized to violence. At the same time, his difficult childhood also revealed a certain vulnerability, suggesting that his expression of anger and frustration, unjustifiable they may be, are rooted in his trauma. Although he often insists that his actions are not committed out of malicious desire to cause harm. Eric himself also argues that he could be reformed if only he received compassion, that is, if Christine agrees to love him. Although Eric's motives in forcing Christine to be faithful to him are certainly indefensible, his final act of kindness reveals that love can actually reform violence. It is, however, crucial to acknowledge that Eric first resorted to something far more sinister long before his final redemption. Music is an unsurprisingly poignant theme for this novel, as this is where the beat of the story resides. After the death of her father, Christine clings unto every remembrance she has of him in the form of his art. Music is what she has left to remember him by, though unfortunately it is also her passion she has lost as she grieves his passing. When Christine entered the opera, she did not dare make herself known out of fear. For years, she was an idle presence within performances, that is until a voice had made himself known as her guardian, the angel of music. In her grief and desperation for connection, Christine had fallen under the influence of the Phantom's manipulative intentions. This is made thoroughly clear when this supposedly angelic mentor placed expectations that can honestly be interpreted as explicit conditions on Christine only to devote her art and presence to him and him alone. Eric used his music as some form of trance, knowing how much Christine is connected to it. For this theme, I would like to note an interesting observation, although it might be a common one. There were two songs I was particularly drawn to from the musical, and I only realized their juxtaposition to one another when I mulled it over. Music of the Night is Eric's song. Yeah, well, tell me something I don't know. Yes, but also I mean this in a symbolic sense. The lyrics represent his isolation from the world, favoring darkness over the garish light of day, which would reveal to the world what he is behind the mask. The song doesn't only represent the allure of the night, but also tells us, the audience, that it is a one-sided song, a darkness of the phantom's projected domain. In contrast to this, we have All I Ask of You. Raoul in the novel might have been a tad immature for not even considering what Christine might be going through. However, he gets his big moment and genuinely presents him as someone who cares deeply for her. Raoul ensures that daylight will dry her tears and that he will be her shelter and her light. Instead of wanting to control her, he simply asks to be a part of her life. Although the novel takes pity on Eric's tragic situation, highlighting the injustice of being forced to live in solitude, it also offers no viable alternative. Eric is forced to accept that his talents as a singer will never come to light, and that he will never be forgiven for his appearance. In this way, the novel denounces what is long perceived of beauty, that physical deformity could be considered a reflection of one's moral character. Ultimately, it is only in death that the novel offers some justice. When Eric is dead, his skeleton resembles that of any mortal, thus finally offering some semblance of normality, a macabre kind of solace that, in the end, all of humanity will succumb to the same decay and wither that everyone fears. Eric's tragedy lies in his disparity to be assimilated within society all throughout his life. The novel possesses a social commentary on judgmental nature of society. As being said previously, Eric is essentially a musical virtuoso, which sets him apart from ordinary human beings, but his abilities only appeal to others as long as he hides his physical deformity. I have read Frankenstein before Phantom of the Opera. Hopefully I would be able to make an analysis on that one as well. But I have noticed that both excellent literary works have the same lingering question towards the reader. When society, with all of its prejudice, infers that external appearance goes hand in hand with morality, how long does it take for the deformed to believe that they're monsters and start to act like one? There is one quote for me that solidifies and definitively embodies the final theme of this novel. The reader knows and guesses the rest. It is all in keeping with this incredible and yet voracious story. Poor and happy Eric. Shall we pity him? Shall we curse him? He asked only to be someone, like everybody else. But he was too ugly, and he had to hide his genius or use it to play tricks with, when, with an ordinary face, he would have been one of the most distinguished of mankind. He had a heart that could have held the empire of the world, and in the end, he had to content himself with a cellar. Ah yes, we must needs pity the opera ghost. I seldom ask myself why did I not read this sooner, because now I understand that this book is hailed as one of those classics. Brilliant in its own right, Gaston Leroux's Phantom of the Opera is a soulful type of Gothic that cuts deep. The kind of horror that does not solely rely on fear, but also hinges upon our fascination and eventually the acceptance of the unconventional. I hope this review enlightens you to read this novel. I highly encourage watching the musical adaptation of it as well to gain some fresh perspective. Thank you for watching, and see you on your next read.